Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
I call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee on February 25th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. First item of business is the approval of minutes. I'll need a motion on the draft minutes of the February 11th, 2025 Finance meeting.
I move approval.
Motion to approve by Alder Jetzer. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to public appearances for non-agenda items. We have nobody in chamber or online, so we can move on to item 4, Finance Director Report. Misty?
Thank you. So I'll start with the Treasurer's Report. So the December 2024 Treasurer's Report is included in your packet. You'll notice it's only about half of the documents that you usually receive. All of the budget versus actual reports we don't include in December or January as we're trying to close out and clean everything up. I don't want to provide information that's potentially misleading, being that the year isn't complete. So we do include all of the cash piece of it. That's all in there. Big news would be there were 5 CDs that matured in December, and then we also were doing tax collection at that time, so you probably saw a very large balance in our Park Bank account for all of that tax collection. So I will pause for a moment in case there's questions on that. Bill?
Yeah, just a couple of funds here that saw some fairly big dollar amounts shifting around. The general fund is down $4.5 million, debt service down 2.8, capital debt service proceeds down 2.3, and capital projects up 9. Is there anything worth mentioning there? Or?
Yes, I don't necessarily know off the top of my head. We do spend a lot of money at the end of the year, right? So there's debt payments that go out that vary depending on which ones are due. I would have done the transfer of borrowed money that we spent on capital projects. That transfer probably happened in December and would have caused some shifting there too, but I don't have anything specific. I can look into it if you're interested, but
Like I say, they were big
it's
dollars,
general.
and I
Yep.
just wondered if there was something worth looking at or, mentioning.
Yeah. Other than that, so the payroll RFP is going well. So we kicked off our first short interview with one of the vendors today, and then we have 2 more, I think, later this week and a couple more next week. We have 5 of them in total. From that point, we'll likely invite 3 of them in to do full demonstrations, like full day demonstrations towards the end of March, and then we'll continue down that. And then the PD, or the police department scheduling RFP, is scheduled to go out somewhere near the end of March as well. So things are moving pretty quickly there, which is good to see. Settlement went well last week. That was all of the tax money that we collected through January 31st installment date. We have now settled that with all of the overlying jurisdictions last week, which all went well. And then we have audit in 2 weeks. So the finance department is working our hardest to get everything wrapped up, documented, and finalized before the auditors get here in a couple weeks. That's it.
Wow, it's a fast turnaround on the audit. I guess it is February, but it still feels very fast.
It still feels like 2024.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
All right, any questions for Misty? We can move on. Next item of business is the review of bills. First is 5A, detailed review of checks for $10,000 and above from February 1st to 15th, 2025, totaling $719,520.24. Comments or questions? Bill?
I saw a portable Motorola radio. Is that like police, fire, EMS?
Can you give me a page by any chance and where it is in the packet?
You can look for check 128196.
Was it on the 10,000 and above? Or?
Yeah, it's 15,760.
There we go. That is the fire department.
Okay. Is that
So they got radios for their trucks. I think it was the new trucks that came out. So I can send
Okay.
you more details, but yes, that would be the radios for those pieces of equipment.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask about that, because it's a portable radio and 15,000. I thought that was a little high, but if it's for a console, I guess that makes a difference.
I can pull the detail and get it to everybody. Or
I think, weren't they equipping 2 trucks, Misty? Or
that
just one?
sounds right. I'd have to look it up though.
That might account for the cost, and while I have never worked for the fire department, I think they sometimes run multiple radios in those cars, or in the trucks too.
That makes sense, okay.
Seeing nothing else, we can move on to 5B, detailed review of all checks issued, checks 128191 to 128296 from February 1 to 15, 2025, totaling $886,831.37. Comments or questions? Bill?
check 128255 is from the city of Fitchburg to the city of Fitchburg for tax overpayment refund.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily know the specifics of this one. I can look it up, but this happens every once in a while when someone makes a payment on either one check or one credit card payment that includes both taxes and something else, whether it's a utility bill or a permit or something like that. And we have a very different system for taxes versus everything else. So we ring it up in taxes, it generates a refund, and then we cut the refund back to ourselves so that we can apply it to the appropriate place. It's a frustrating process. That's why we tell people not to put multiple things on one check. But in those very rare occasions, we will go through those extra hoops to make sure things get where they need to go.
Okay.
Seeing nothing else, we can move on to 5C, detailed review of P-card transactions for $10,000 and above for the cycle ending January 6, 2025, totaling $99,628.13. Comments or questions? Moving on to 5D, review of P-card transactions for the cycle ending January 6, 2025, totaling $249,627.75. Comments or questions? Seeing nothing else, we can move on to item 6, action items. Starting with 6A, I will need a motion on resolution R0925, amending the 2025 general fund budget for Senior Center LTE Nutrition Site Assistant. Motion to approve by Alder Wheeler. And who's going to tackle this one?
I can take this one.
Misty?
Let me just quick note, Jim Wheeler. So this is the nutrition site LTE. We first hired them last year, 2024. That was a council resolution as well. In 2024, the Friends agreed to pay for the entire cost of it. For 2025, we would like to continue that LTE position. Though the Friends wasn't open to a full reimbursement of the cost, they were willing to pay a pretty significant chunk at 70% of the cost for 2025. So this resolution would authorize the continuing of that position for 20 hours a week. 70% of it would be paid for by the Friends donation. The balance would come from within the senior center budget in their waived disability premiums and then some of the transportation money that they have allocated that has not been put to good use yet. So they'd like to put it to this purpose instead.
Awesome. Comments or questions? Bill?
So this is a new year. This is last year's transportation money that's getting shifted around?
Nope, this year.
Interesting. Okay.
Really happy to see this. I know there's a lot of needed positions, but this one feels it's good to continue it on. Seeing no other questions, we can move to a vote. All in favor of resolution R0925, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 6B, I'll need a motion on Resolution R 2625, amending the 2024 library fund budget for utility costs.
I move approval.
Motion to approve by Alder Jetser.
I'll take this one too. So this one is a 2024 budget amendment. The utility cost in the library was more than expected, likely due to the chiller being out for a while, and then also the solar not working for a while in 2024. So they have an overage in that account that they would like to use the sorter contract that ended up being delayed until 2025, using that funding to make up the difference in 2024.
Questions? Bill? Oh, Jim.
Just to add on to that, at the library board meeting, we talked about this, and there seems to be maybe an issue again with how much energy the library is using, even though the chiller has been replaced. So Wendy is keeping an eye on it, and we'll see what happens in the future.
Good to know.
So how closely do they track that energy usage? I mean, has there been a spike?
I should have taken better notes, but Wendy has looked at the kilowatt hours that's been used, and it has been up a little bit more than usual, even with the new chiller. So you would think that it would be more efficient, but it's not turning out to be that way yet. So she's keeping an eye on it just to see, where it goes the next month or so.
Okay.
All right, we can take it to a vote. All in favor of Resolution R 2625, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 6C, I'll need a motion on Resolution R 3525, adopting the 2026 to 2035 Capital Improvement Plan CIP schedule.
I move approval.
Motion to approve by Alder Wheeler. Misty?
Included in the packet is a draft schedule for the CIP adoption for 2026 through 2035. Hard to believe we're talking already about that next year. Included in there is that there really was one kind of change from other years due to calendars. I bumped back the council action by one meeting due to some scheduling conflicts, but other than that, the process will stay very similar to what it's been the last several years.
And we think that bumping back will still be able to meet all the deadlines?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, we were looking at the CIP projects for transportation at the TTC meeting, and it was amazing how many things were falling off the CIP because of how many projects have been. Anyway, it's just incredible how much work the city has done over the last 4 or 5 years. Lots of projects.
Projects that are completed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were done the last couple of years, so they're off the agenda. So, seeing no questions, we can take it to a vote. All in favor of Resolution R 3525, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 6D, I'll need a motion on Resolution R 3625, approving Greenfield and South Stoner Prairie Neighborhood Plans budget amendment.
I move approval.
Motion to approve by Alder Jetser. Misty?
I think Brad is here to take that one.
Oh, Brad
Is that
Sippel.
correct?
Yeah, Brad, take it away.
Yeah, hi everyone. I can just give a quick overview. The memo included will have more details, including, let me back up a little bit. So what we're asking for is a $27,000 increase over the contracted amount with MSA to, I guess, basically make up the difference to finish the plans. There are several reasons why the budget has exceeded what the estimate was. Those are laid out in the memo, but I guess to summarize, the project has taken longer than originally planned, which pushed more wages into 2024 and 2025 with wage increases for MSA, annual wage increases. The Greenfield Steering Committee meetings have required a lot more prep and time than originally anticipated. And I guess the scope of the South Stoner Prairie utility work was a bit, it needed to be a bit broader than originally anticipated as well. And South Stoner Prairie also had more stakeholder meetings than we had planned for. That was needed to kind of work through some issues, especially related to the land use and utilities. The staff worked with MSA to look at basically what the minimum we'd need to kind of finish the plans to a satisfactory level, and that's the $27,000 we're asking for. That brings the total cost of the two plans up to $305,000. There was $300,000 budgeted, but we also have a cost share agreement that wasn't factored into that for about $64,000 from two of the Southstoner Prairie landowners. So, I guess that's kind of the overview. I'm here to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, one question. So I don't understand what you mean by it was budgeted for $307,000, but it didn't take into account the $64,000 from the partners. Like, is the total cost $370,000-ish, or how?
No.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So the original budget, when it was passed in, what was that, 22 or 23, allocated $300,000 for the neighborhood plans. We contracted with MSA for $278,000, so it was under that $300,000 budget. And then we also entered into an agreement with the two landowners to cost share Southstoner Prairie, and their portion of that totaled about $64,000. So the actual cost to the city is what, $278,000 minus $64,000. That's what the actual cost to the city so far has been for the neighborhood plans.
Got it. Any other questions?
So most of the increase is due to stakeholders?
Yeah, I'd say
meetings?
Stakeholders and the neighborhood. Stakeholders in the case of Southstoner Prairie and the neighborhood in the case of Greenfield.
Thanks.
Seeing no other questions, we can take it to a vote. All in favor of resolution R 3625, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thanks, Brad. Moving on to 6E, resolution R 3725, acceptance of Fish Hatchery Road water main replacement bids.
I move approval.
Motion approved by Alder Wheeler. I'll turn it over to Tim.
Thank you. There was a break in the water main on Fish Hatchery Road under Nine Springs Creek back in February 2024. So Public Works has prepared construction plans and specifications and obtained competitive bids for replacement of this main. The project was advertised by legal notice in the Wisconsin State Journal on January 15th, 2025 and January 22nd, 2025, as well as posted on questcdn.com. On January 29th, 2025, we opened two sealed bids for the project, and the results are listed in the attached bid tab. The low bidder, Speedway Sand and Gravel Incorporated's bid of $298,347.70 was found to be in conformance with the bidding requirements. We're looking for council to approve the award of the Fish Hatchery Road water main replacement project to Speedway Sand and Gravel in the total amount of $328,182.47, which includes a 10% contingency for the project. And then we're also looking for council to amend the 2025 water utility budget to redirect $329,000 from the McKee Road water main replacement project to the emergency water main repairs project. And then also looking for council to direct staff to include the required 2024 budget carryover amounts for this project in the annual carryover resolution, which is anticipated in March of 2025.
Thank you, Tim. One question that just occurred to me as I was reading this, how often do we tap into the 10% contingency that's budgeted for these different projects?
I would say every project kind of hits that. You know, Depends on how much into it we go. If we have an overrun or an unforeseen condition that pops up in the field, that's kind of where we'll hit that 10% contingency. A lot of times though, or other times we do have underruns in the project, so say a fitting may not be required. So that would be an underrun on a fitting, and that would help save on tapping into that contingency. So it all varies on what we find in the field and what's buried underneath the ground.
So when we budget with the engineer's estimate, is that meant to include the contingency, or is the contingency always on top of that estimate?
The engineer's estimate typically always includes a contingency amount. So we do budget with that.
Thank you. Bill.
Tim, did you say this break occurred in February of last year, like a full year ago?
Yes, it did.
So the reason, apparently we have redundancy in our water main, so we've been limping along and surviving with this leaky water main for a year, but why the long delay? Is this a long delay?
It is a long delay. When the repair happened, we had to obviously isolate it, and then the water distribution system is looped, so that's where we have the redundancy. So once we shut the valves off and was able to isolate the break to stop it from leaking, we had to come up with the design and the specifications, so that takes time. Then this project was bid out, I believe it was late summer, early fall, and we didn't receive any bids. So then the decision was made to, if we put it back out to bid, we wouldn't have been able to put asphalt down on Fish Hatchery Road because of the cold weather coming. So we decided, since we were able to isolate the break and that the system was looped and still was able to provide service to the residents, that we would rebid this back out in spring of this year, or start in construction in spring and then bid it out January.
Thanks, Tim. Seeing no more questions, we can take it to a vote. All in favor of Resolution R3725, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to Resolution 6F, I'll need a motion on Resolution R3825, amending the 2024 general fund budget for streetlight repairs and city hall utilities. Oh, and Misty, do you want to? Oh, that's the next one. Never mind. Go ahead.
I'll move approval.
Motion to approve by Alder Jetzer. Tim?
In 2024, there were additional unforeseen streetlight repairs that exceeded the amount budgeted. There were fewer repairs and maintenance supplies needed in 2024 due to there being fewer equipment breakdowns. The cost of utilities at City Hall exceeded the amount budgeted in 2024. However, there were fewer building repair and maintenance supplies and services needed in the community center and City Hall buildings due to there being fewer repairs during the year. So we're looking for council to amend the 2024 general fund budget to redirect $7,500 from the Public Works repair and maintenance supplies account to the Public Works streetlight maintenance account. And then also looking for council to amend the 2024 general fund budget to redirect $8,082 from the community center repairs and maintenance supplies and $9,894 from the community center repairs and maintenance by others account. And then also $3,781 from the City Hall repairs and maintenance by others, for a total of $21,757 to the City Hall utilities and telephone account.
Thanks, Tim. Questions? I have a question for Misty. We typically do 2024 budget over, like transfers all in one go. Do we usually have these ones before we get to that process?
So this is a little different. So what you're thinking about is carryovers, where money was not spent in '24 that we want to be able to spend in 2025. You'll see that referred out at the next meeting, possibly as a direct referral. These are where amounts went over in 2024, and we need to account for it. So there are often a lot of budget amendments for it, not usually these larger ones that need council action. Honestly, I think part of that is the symptom of the budget's getting leaner and leaner and leaner, and it's harder and harder to kind of absorb those increases. So more of that would have to go through council.
Got it. And we anticipate this is the last one before we hit audit, because obviously audit's coming up really fast, and we're still amending the 2024 budget. Yeah.
So there's one more that's getting referred out tonight that will get acted on the following meeting.
Okay.
But after that, it should be the end if these are all approved.
Great. Any questions? Jim?
Nope.
All right. We can take it to a vote. All in favor of resolution R3825, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 6G. I'll need a motion on resolution R3925, accepting GFC copier contract for library.
I move approval.
Motion approved by Alder Wheeler. Who's going to take this one?
I'll take this one. So the copier was up for renewal. So they looked at what the options were for a renewal of a 5-year lease, are recommending that we go with Gordon Flesch. The cost is about half of what it's been in the past because they really looked at what they needed as far as size and volume and capacity of those copiers and really tried to streamline that a little bit to save a little bit of money.
That's a delightful piece of news.
Wendy is very cognizant of the library budget, for sure. Yep.
That's outstanding. And Gordon Flesch is a local company, too, which is kind of nice that we can... Yeah, we can support our local businesses, which is great. Seeing no questions, we can move it to a vote. All in favor of resolution R3925, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 6H, I'll need a motion on resolution R4225, approving First Amendment to license with T-Mobile Central LLC for communication equipment on Tower E.
I move approval.
Motion to approve by Alder Jetzer. Tim?
The City of Fitchburg Utility District owns a water tower at 2827 Commerce Park Drive, also known as our Tower E. Tower E was designed and built to accommodate private vendor communication equipment and facilities. T-Mobile Central LLC and the City of Fitchburg entered into a lease on March 1st, 2010 for placement of wireless digital communication equipment on Tower E. This license will expire in 2025. T-Mobile has requested to amend the license to add 5 additional 5-year terms to the license and to adjust the rent escalator to 3%. Any extensions to the license needs to include current notice information as well as insurance requirements for T-Mobile's contractors and subcontractors. An amendment to the lease license is necessary in order to incorporate these modifications into the license agreement. We're looking for council to approve the First Amendment to license with T-Mobile Central LLC, subject to minor edits by the city attorney and director of public works.
Thanks, Tim. Does anyone else use this tower besides T-Mobile?
I believe T-Mobile's the only one on Tower E.
Do we anticipate having other renters in the future, or?
We do. AT&T, I believe, utilizes some of our other towers. And then our new water tower that we're building will also have the capability of having wireless on it.
So I think, are you asking whether multiple tenants are using the same water tower? Okay. Is that ever the case, Tim, or does T-Mobile get one and AT&T get the other?
I'd have to check with Tracy on that. I believe at most it might be able to accommodate 2, but I believe it's just one carrier per tower.
So my one question is about the changing the escalator from 4 to 3%. I'm not sure why we would do this, because with a 25-year contract, I understand that the plan is for have this pay off the repainting of the tower every 20 to 25 years, but it's pretty difficult for us to project what that looks like 25 years out. And the fact that we would be locked into that for 25 years, even if the rates went up, or I don't know, that's a long time, and concerned about changing the.
Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but with this being in effect five-year terms, I assume there's an opportunity for us to potentially negotiate or renegotiate that escalator if inflationary pressures were significant. Is that the case?
We can. However, T-Mobile may or may not go for the escalator. They were the ones that had requested it go from 4 to 3%. The reason we were willing to go along with that is, they are willing to sign a lease for 25 years and not leave us. They have been with us since 2010. They've been a great tenant. They really don't bother us. They don't interfere with our utility work. We don't have to go out there and monitor them at all really throughout the year. So it's really been a great tenant. And also we compared it to what Madison's getting on some of their water towers from cellular companies. And we are on the high end. So we were willing to reduce that 1% for them to stay with us for another 25 years.
But the length of the contract felt like it was worthwhile to change the terms.
Correct.
Great. Seeing no other questions, we can take it to a vote. All in favor of resolution R4225, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And moving on to item 6I, I'll need a motion on resolution R4325, amending the 2024 water fund and sewer fund budgets, purchased power, and MMSD's charges. And I'm going to throw this to Misty before a motion.
Yes, so there was another invoice that came through for 2024. So another budget amendment was identified that needs council approval. So today, staff updated the staff memo and the resolution to include that additional item. Just wanted to point that out. If we were open to adding that now to kind of streamline the process, that would be great. If there's heartburn from either finance or council, we can take that back off and then do a separate resolution. But it would be nice, since it's 2024, to get that wrapped up before audit. So with that, so if we could make a motion to approve, if you're open to it, as amended by staff.
I move that we move this forward as amended by staff.
Motion to approve R4325 as amended by staff by Alder Wheeler. And just to point that out, it's
It was
okay.
The last one. So the resurfacing cost, the 9,300 was added.
Got it. And those increased MMSD charge. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's get the summary. Tim. Jumping ahead.
Sure. The cost of electricity and natural gas used in operation of pumps for the water utility exceeded the 2024 budget. While there were a higher number of water main breaks in 2024, the costs to complete the repairs were less than budgeted. The pass-through Madison Metropolitan Sewage District MMSD charges were higher in 2024 than expected. The additional flowage resulted in higher revenues in the sewer utility as the costs from MMSD are passed on to the customer. So we're looking for council to amend the 2024 water utility fund budget by redirecting $19,620 from the repairs and maintenance by others to the purchased power costs account. And then we're also looking for council to amend the 2024 sewer utility fund budget to reflect the $147,120 increase in MMSD costs and the related increase in customer revenue. And then the last amendment that Misty had mentioned. We're looking for council to amend the 2024 sewer utility fund budget to reflect the $9,300 shortfall for the resurfacing costs, and that would be covered by lift station repairs by others. The reason for the overage was we resurfaced a lot more of our roads due to the maintenance of our sewer collection system. And then the lift station is relatively new, so maintenance repairs were not required as much as we anticipated in 2024.
Thanks, Tim. I'm curious about the MMSD charges. So I understand that those are passed through to customers, but why are we only now getting the 2024 amounts? Like, we did not know that sooner than now, or do we only amend it at the end once we have the final rates?
The bills that we get from MMSD are quarterly, so it is hard to gauge it completely. But then also because these are such big dollar amounts, it was easier to do them all at one time. But I'll just reiterate that the increased volume from the customer means we received more money from the customer, and then that's what is used to pay for these additional costs that we had to pay to MMSD because the flowage was higher. So it's really just that on both ends, the volume was high.
Great. Questions? Seeing none, we can. Oh, Bill, sorry. Bill.
Yeah, so the repair fund for the lift station, is that meant for like annual repair operating expenses, or is that something of a replacement fund that we're dipping into?
I believe it's an annual account that we basically, say a pump were to go and we would have to send the pump in to the manufacturer to get fixed, or a local company that can fix the pump. So that's where that account would come into play.
To your point, for the capital side of it, there's a separate replacement fund in the CIP for the future replacement of the lift station, but that's not what this is.
Seeing no more questions, we can take it to a vote. All in favor of Resolution R 4325, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Tim. Moving on to item 7, announcements. Our next finance meeting is March 11, 2025. Anything else, Misty? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Moved by Alder Jetzer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:07 p.m. Thank you.